So the other day, someone asked me if I could talk about DACA, and I didn't know what DACA was, so I ended up having to find this video here, and we're just gonna go, do what I normally do.
I remember the day that I found out I was undocumented. I got a call from an admissions office from a university that I had applied to. They wanted to see a green card. I, was extremely embarrassed. My mother just started crying. In between her tears, she just started apologizing and told me that it was her fault.
Yeah. At least she has some degree of self-awareness.
And that she wanted a better future for us, and look at what happened.
That's Juan Escalante. When he was 11 years old, Juan and his family came to the United States from Venezuela, where life had become dangerous.
We were driving, and we stopped at a red light, and a man approaches the car, and he tells my mother if she doesn't surrender the car to him, he is going to pull out a gun and kill one of her kids in the car, right there.
This might not be entirely relevant, but, where is his father in that particular situation? Like I said, it might not be totally relevant, but those are the thoughts I have when I hear about a mother being alone in a dangerous situation. I think, where's the man? Where is he in all of this?
We picked up everything, we sold all our toys, and, just embarked on this journey.
Juan made it to college and graduated. But because he was undocumented, he couldn't work, and he worried about being deported.
Now, let's just make some assumptions here, and, assume that Juan, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 when this happened, maybe even 10, maybe even 14, 15. That means Juan went about either 5 to 10 years in the United States, just walking around, and actually went to college, finished college, and then all of a sudden he stops and he says to himself, I don't know if it's legal for me to work here. I mean, was this not a concern? How did he even get into college, for that matter? Without a green card or without any identification as to who he was. That's interesting in its own right.
Even like a trip to the grocery store, and you get pulled over, and that's it, it's game over.
Yeah, it's kind of what happens when you're a criminal. I mean, sure, it may not be the worst of crimes, but it is a crime nonetheless, and honestly, if we can't be expected to enforce that law, honestly, why are we expected to enforce any law? It's my question. Question of the day.
But that changed in June of 2012.
Effective immediately, the Department of Homeland Security is taking steps to lift the shadow of deportation from these young people.
If you'd come to the U.S. when you were under 16, if you were either in high school or had a high school diploma, and if you had either no criminal record or a teeny tiny misdemeanor,
then you could apply for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program.
Oh, that explains that. However, the name implies something. Deferred action. It implies that they're going to do something, just not right now. Is that the problem with DACA? Perhaps, I don't know. They're going to keep taking us away.
Basically, a permit that protects you from getting deported and allows you to work legally in the U.S. Juan got this protection, and so did nearly 800,000 others who applied.
So if I understand correctly, it's a license that allows you to stay here, but it doesn't actually make you a citizen. Don't you think that that's a little bit of a problem? I mean, technically speaking, they would still be an illegal immigrant. You would just know that they were here illegally since they were children, but they were legal, not all the same. I mean, it seems kind of more like a band-aid to fix, a problem or to cover up a problem than a solution. Yeah, but that's just what it sounds like. I mean, they're going to keep taking us away.
But now, that protection is gone.
I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded.
DACA was designed to protect a generation of young undocumented immigrants known as Dreamers, named after a bill called the DREAM Act, which had been floating around Congress for more than a decade, and with bipartisan support. The bill would have given unauthorized immigrants who grew up in the US a way to gain legal status and eventually apply for citizenship. And even though it fell short of 60 Senate votes in 2010, the idea was still popular with the American public.
When President Obama announced DACA, it was in the middle of the 2012 presidential campaign, but it didn't turn into a huge campaign issue because Republicans were really ambivalent about turning immigration into a wedge issue.
We need to help accommodate these kids who, through no fault of their own, find themselves in this legal limbo.
We cannot forever have children who were brought here by their parents when they were small children to live in the shadows.
You know, while it was a brief statement, he's right. I mean, like that, you know, this needs to stop. For a multitude of reasons, actually. But, no, seriously, like, that really needs to stop. And another thing that kind of gets me, I said in a video the other day, no, I'll save it for later. But I think McCain is right. That needs to stop.
Shadows.
But in 2014, Obama proposed making older immigrants eligible for DACA and creating similar protections against deportation for undocumented parents with children who were U.S. citizens.
And a lot of Republicans said, whoa, that's too far.
These new actions would have protected about 4.5 million people, nearly half the estimated undocumented population.
I know they said estimated, but like, how could you even estimate it if they're undocumented? Oh, that's right, they are documented because they signed up for DACA, which, honestly, I don't want to say it's stupid. It's not stupid. But I mean, like, it's a bit ill-conceived because if the entire point is trying to avoid being detected as an illegal immigrant, the very last thing you would ever do is tell the government to give you a badge that says you're an illegal immigrant. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking too hard into it.
A group of 26 states sued the Obama administration over the expansion, and they won. A federal judge stopped the DACA expansions from going into effect, hinting that they were probably unconstitutional. Yeah,
I heard from Ben Shapiro that an executive order actually shouldn't be powerful enough to do something like that. I don't remember exactly what Ben Shapiro said, so I'll probably just link his video in the description box below, but it was actually founded. I do actually find that it was unconstitutional what Obama did there, so this is actually reasonable. Whether, you know, you think it's right to deport illegal immigrants or not, what Obama did was not constitutional.
People had started thinking back to, well, if those bigger programs were unconstitutional, what does that say about this DACA program that's already in place?
Then came Donald Trump.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Once Donald Trump became the leading Republican presidential candidate running on an immigration hardline platform, Republicans started to look at things in a new light.
If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration.
When Trump won, DACA's fate seemed sealed. But even though he revoked lots of Obama's other executive orders on immigration, nearly 8 months into his term, he still hadn't ended DACA.
A lot of the immigration hawks began to go, wait, we were promised that you were going to get rid of this amnesty that exists right now. What the heck happened?
So a bunch of states threatened to sue the government over DACA again if Trump didn't get rid of it, which brings us to early September 2017.
It is my duty to ensure that the laws of the United States are enforced and that the constitutional order is upheld.
It's a very stark message that leaves a whole lot of people who only consider themselves to be Americans in limbo for the next several months.
In the 5 years it's been around, DACA has had a big impact on young undocumented immigrants. A survey of DACA recipients found nearly 70% got a job with better pay. More than 60% opened their first bank account. Nearly 65% bought their first car, and a similar share say that they've pursued educational opportunities they previously couldn't. But when these protections expire over the coming weeks, months, or years, they'll be back where they started before 2012, unable to work legally and constantly at risk for deportation.
I decided to let the video play out since it's more factoids than there are points I could really address. So that explains what DACA is. And I guess I have a couple of thoughts on it. I don't know if this will make the individual who asked the video happy, but here are my thoughts, okay? The topic of illegal immigration, at least for me, has always been sort of a tricky situation, because on the one hand, it's illegal, and on the other hand, it's illegal. So, I mean, it should be kind of cut and dry there. That kind of should begin and end the conversation. But the nuance of the situation kind of revolves around the fact that we're talking about people, and that it's a crime that isn't, I don't want to say victimless, because it's not a victimless crime, but I mean, it's a crime that has no direct victim to it. Like, for example, like if you do drugs, there's no direct victim, but I mean, you are hurting yourself. There's no real way around that. I guess that's really the best way to put it. But at the same time, it's a crime nonetheless. But the thing that kind of really is really interesting about it, I think that really kind of puts the true nuance in the situation when it comes to DACA, or when it comes to illegal immigrants, are the children of illegal immigrants. When they're kind of born and raised in America, it doesn't make a lot of sense, or even if they're not born, but I mean, like, even at a young age, if they're raised in America, it honestly doesn't make a lot of sense to deport these people to their so-called home countries, because they don't know anything about said country. I mean, like, if I took a white person and was like, hey, you're of European German descent, and I put them in Germany, it's going to be like, well, why are you deporting me? I mean, like, I grew up in America. I know the culture here in America. Why would I go back? Same thing with any African American person, send them back to Africa. They're like, why the fuck would I don't know anything about Africa. They don't have a house in Africa either. So, I mean, to take a child, or take, someone who was a child, obviously an adult now, and tell them to go back to their home country when they have no money there, no house there, no knowledge of the environment or culture, just seems totally unreasonable, even to myself, despite the fact that they're illegal immigrants. I think that is the point I think a lot of people are trying to make there, but that is not reasonable, and it really isn't. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. You're just kind of putting a bum on the street at that point in some other country to go do whatever they did, and you're doing this to someone who didn't do anything wrong. I mean, they did, but they didn't know because they were a child, or they were just born. It's obviously the sins of their father, their mothers that got them here. But I mean, honestly, I have to say that if that's your point about, deportation of younger people or illegal immigrants who grew up in America, I have to say that that's reasonable. It just is not. It just does not make sense to remove this person from this environment they grew up in and put them back in a place they know shit about. It just doesn't make any sense. Be as it may, though, I still have to say this, which I said in the video the other day, in my comedy video. I find it interesting that illegal immigration is indeed the only illegal act where we try to defend the perpetrators. It's really kind of funny to me how, again, you don't find very many thieves who, people are like, no, that guy, he needed something to eat, so that's why we let him. No, it doesn't really fucking happen. But it's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation that I mean, that has a solution. There is a clear-cut solution, but I mean, it just kind of matters whether or not you want to be really staunch or hard about it. If you want to be staunch and hard about it, then you just deport illegal immigrants because they committed a fucking crime. Because they did. There's just no way around that. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but they did commit a crime. But at the same time, I can't say that it's reasonable to deport children, but then you can't deport parents without deporting the children. I think in that point, though, if you find a family of illegal immigrants and they have a parent who came here legally, then yeah, you should send the child off with them because they committed a crime and they shouldn't be here. But if the person, grew up here, I guess the passage of time is what would make it different, which I guess makes it really nuanced. It makes it kind of really tough to really have solutions to this problem. If the person grew up here, it's not reasonable. As a person's still a child, then I think, and they have their parents with them, then yeah, I think they should, be deported and put back in their country and try to come back over here legally. And that sounds tough, but it sounds harsh, but I mean, that's just kind of reality. Because here's the thing, we talk about the harsh lives of illegal immigrants, but what about legal immigrants, though? We talk about how it may not be fair, or it's not right for these illegal or undocumented people, to be deported. But what about the people who are trying to come here legally who can't because we have to deal with this problem first? So, I mean, should there be like an easier path to citizenship when it comes to being a U.S. citizen? I don't know. I don't really have the answer to that question. I don't even know if it is incredibly difficult because I'm an American. But at the same time, I think it should be considered how to actually become a legal immigrant instead of always trying to fix and deal with the problem of undocumented or illegal immigrants, because there's no real, I mean, there is a solution. There's a really hard line solution. Okay, so there's no nuanced solution. There's no soft solution. There's only a hard line solution. The hard line solution is you put those people back where they came from because they did not come over here legally. That's the hard line solution. However, at the same time, there's still the nuance of people who grew up here. That's really difficult to deal with if you want to have a conscience, or if you want to be reasonable to them. But at the same time, I mean, we can't pretend that these people aren't criminals, and we can't pretend these people aren't fucking up the lives of legal immigrants or people who want to legally come into this country and do exactly what they're supposed to do. Because those are the people who kind of get cucked a lot of the time by these illegal immigrants. So you have to sit here and deal with this problem instead of addressing and trying to deal with the way of actually giving them citizenship, and actually letting them be in the country. So I guess me as a person, I don't mind immigrants at all in any capacity. I don't really care. As long as you want to be an American, as long as you want to make the country better and make our culture better, then sure, fine, by all means, you can come by legally. But when you're a criminal, then we have to enforce the law. Because here's the thing, if we can't enforce the law on these illegal immigrants, then the question is, how can we enforce the law on anything? How is it fair that we lock up one criminal, but we don't punish another criminal? That's one thing that always bothers me about it. There's no way around the fact that these people are criminal. They are. There's no way around it. So I don't know, man. Hopefully, maybe the people in the comment section will have some more thoughts. Maybe they'll think about things I didn't think about. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else has to say. Just kind of leave this one open up in the air. I don't really have solutions to this problem, but I think it might be an interesting discussion. So with that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click that like button. And shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. As always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.